Well, tonight, federal prosecutors want to hear from anybody who has any information at all about Jeffrey Epstein and the people who hung around Jeffrey Epstein, which may involve two U.S. presidents. More on that in just a little bit. This case is about a scheme to traffic young women or girls for sex. They were conned, they were manipulated, they were even raped. That is what federal prosecutors allege. And listen to how serious they are in their efforts to find out what really happened to these victims. They are asking tonight anybody who's listening to the sound of my voice, who flew on the Lolita Express, yes, that's the name given to Epstein's private jet, to contact the FBI immediately. Here's the message, in fact, that prosecutors and those tied to the investigation are sending to those men. Quote, "You would much rather be visiting the Department of Justice and engaging a conversation about what you saw rather than making the DOJ find you." In other words, come tell us what you know before we find out what you know. Wow. Not everyone who traveled on the Lolita Express hung around with Epstein or visited his homes in Florida and New York is a suspect, by the way. We should make that clear. But the list is impressive, and it may be the focus of a federal investigation. Here it is. President Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. Hollywood stars Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker. Billionaire sports owner Ron Burkle. Former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers. Famed O.J. Simpson lawyer Alan Dershowitz. Renowned author and psychologist Steven Pinker. Also appearing in the media reports is top model Naomi Campbell. You see him there. We gave them to you from left to right, in that order. Now, let's talk about this. As for Presidents Clinton and Trump, both men are now trying to distance themselves from Epstein. But it may not be that easy. By the way, last night, the great majority of you reached out to us. I was sitting there talking to you all morning because you were reaching out, and you thanked us for our detailed explanation of the Epstein case, and we appreciate that. But of course, many of you also wrote to me to attack or defend Mr. Trump or Mr. Clinton because, like way too many stories in our country right now, everybody seems to see these stories through the prism of their politics. So let me simply share with you what we know from what is being reported about both of these men. Let's start with Mr. Clinton. He says that he cut off contact with Mr. Epstein years ago and only flew on his plane 4 times. That's his official response. However, that does not reconcile with the flight logs collected by both the Daily Beast and Gawker that shows that Mr. Clinton was on 26 international flights and 1 domestic flight between Miami and New York. What gives? Now, like Mr. Clinton, Mr. Trump is also saying today that he cut off all ties with Mr. Epstein and even added today in an interview with Fox News that he wasn't a fan of Mr. Epstein. But in fact, when asked to vouch for Mr. Epstein in an article for New York Magazine, and this is back in 2002, Mr. Trump said, and we quote, "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side." Also in 2016, a woman going by the name Katie Johnson sued Mr. Trump, saying that he raped her at one of Mr. Epstein's parties when she was only 13. The Daily Beast, by the way, reports that the woman later dropped the suit. So that's the information. Let's be clear. Right now, only Epstein is officially charged, and everyone else that's being mentioned, including the presidents, deserves the full presumption of innocence in this case. Joining us now to discuss this story is Farron Cousins, who co-hosts America's Lawyer here on RT and also the popular show Ring of Fire. Boy, it's great to have you on, Farron. Let's start with this thing from the Justice Department today. I thought that was really weird that suddenly the Justice Department and the FBI would come out and tell anybody who has any information, has ridden on the Lolita Express, has attended Epstein's parties, has been to his homes in Manhattan, in Florida, or in New Mexico, to contact them immediately and tell them what they know. What do you make of that?
I think right now we have a lot of law enforcement agencies in this country, including, the Justice Department, trying to play catch up. I mean, for a lot of these instances, especially with the plane and the flight logs, We already have those names. I mean, those are available. Those have been available through other lawsuits. They know who these people are, but they've got to come out and make it look like, hey, we're actually doing something. We're participating. We're helping you out. But it also shows that they understand this is an issue we've got to get ahead of, mostly because this is probably going to end up being very bad for a lot of very powerful people here in the United States. And they want to make sure, okay, whatever we could do to stay ahead of it, we're going to do it.
Well, let me tell you why they haven't contacted any of these people. And by any of these people, I mean 2 former presidents, Kevin Spacey, Chris Tucker, Ron Burkle, Larry Summers, Dershowitz. I could go on. The reason the story never moved beyond the original accusations in Miami is because there's this guy named Alex Acosta, who was a U.S. attorney down there, who basically quashed the entire investigation in what looks to me, as a non-lawyer, like one of the dirtiest deals I've ever seen or heard of. Am I wrong?
Well, and that's exactly what a judge just a few months ago actually said. They said that this plea deal that Acosta signed off on, Acosta negotiated, was basically, for lack of a better word, illegal. But it wasn't just the fact that Epstein got this super lenient prison sentence where it amounted to basically you have to stay in a bad hotel for 13 months. You can go as much as you want during the day. What it was that they had the whole thing sealed. Yeah. The victims did not know that this plea deal existed. They didn't know the terms of it. They thought justice had been served. They were the real victims, not just once, but twice, because of Acosta's action.
Aside from Alex Acosta and, of course, Epstein himself, there are 2 very prominent players in all of this, and both are either the president or a former president. We're talking, of course, about Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. Let's start with Bill Clinton. He came out, or his peeps came out yesterday, and they said, look, the president only rode 4 times and has essentially distanced himself from Mr. Epstein. Rode 4 times on the Lolita Express, when in fact, the logs show that he rode 26 times on the Lolita Express. What do you make of this?
You know, I think it's typical just political speak, trying to distance yourself from a problem, even when we have the receipts. I mean, I've gone through, I've worked with some of the lawyers who have worked on some of the civil suits. I've seen these flight logs, okay? I know what is in them. I went through them. I've seen Bill Clinton's name on there, along with another person, and then 2 unidentified women. Yeah. This happened. This exists. These are already admitted in a court. Bill Clinton cannot sweet talk his way out of this like he has done so many times. He is involved, and we know it. Before
we run out of time, since we talked about Bill Clinton, let's talk about Mr. Trump, who also today distanced himself, saying, I never liked this guy, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, in an interview that he gave to the New Yorker, he said, I've known Jeff for 15 years, terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do. And many of them are on the younger side. That's President Trump in 2003 vouching essentially in this quote for Jeffrey Epstein. Mr. Trump was also sued in 2016 by a woman who said her name is Katie Johnson, saying he raped her at one of Epstein's parties when she was only 13. The Daily Beast has since reported that the woman dropped the lawsuit. What do you make of this scenario for President Trump?
Well, I think it's obvious just from his quote that obviously he's seen Epstein with these younger women. The question is, obviously, are you able to prove that Trump was involved with any of it? Same with Clinton. Maybe these 26 trips on that plane were totally innocuous. Yeah. Maybe there's something there, and that's what we're going to find out in the coming weeks and months. You know, all those CDs that they just raided from Epstein's home with a girl's name plus redacted name. We're going to find out so much. It might hit the president. It might hit the former president. It might hit people we haven't even thought of yet. And it's going to be a trip, I mean, from start to finish.
Farron, or will we? Because you know what? You and I are talking here on television, global TV, no less, and I guarantee you that maybe as many as half of the people listening to us think we're both full of crap when we say that if they find out that any of these 2 men were really involved, they will tell us. You get my drift?
Yeah. I think at this point, there's no more hiding anything with this. All of it's got to come out. Epstein might try to make another plea deal. Whatever it is, we're going to find out who was involved, and there's going to be no denying it, no mistaking it, and hopefully, just God forbid, I don't want to see any pictures from it, but if that's what it takes to convince the public, then go ahead and let them out.
Wow. All right. This thing really can blow up. What a pleasure. Farron, thanks so much for taking time to take us through this. Enjoyed the conversation. Look forward to having you back. So you haven't heard that we're the ones covering the stories that you won't see covered anywhere else? In Venezuela, Kazakhstan. Let's go to Hong Kong. And the media reaction to that has been crickets. How about the way we cover those stories? What the hell does that mean? Wale, Wale, Wale. That's the key word in this case, uprising. Keep? Can you believe that? Watching. This is the right thing for members of the media to do, to actually pick sides. Look, if you like what you see, subscribe.